я щойно побачила, як летить ракета. І я почула це.
Pete, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate the time today.
Yeah, you bet. Good to be on, Todd, and well done on the article you had in Armed Forces Press yesterday. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've been really serious about trying to just keep the pressure on to stop this killing. And you know, I put something out this morning on the Gulf War I, you know, which was my era. And you know, I listened to the interview with Scott. I think Scott Horton with Tucker, and it's a 3-hour interview, but it really shocked me as to the reasoning behind the first Gulf War, which I kind of suspected, but I didn't really know all the details. And that really opened my eyes, and I would suggest people do that. Pete, I've got 4 videos. I've got your couple drone, well, 1 drone video, a prisoner video, Mark Root, and another kidnapping video. So when you're ready, you let me know.
Yeah, I think, you know, starting at the top with the Mark Root video, but, you know, just before we even play that, what you're connecting a lot of dots with the Gulf War. And, you know, going back, we've talked about it on this show. I have an article, long article on the color revolution, history of color revolutions, and without a doubt, the most, you know, world-changing color revolution of our time, which was Ukraine 2014. And that became the prototype. That was what convinced the globalists that the color revolution model works so well. And we've seen it over and over and over, to include in the US during the BLM riots, the riots from 17 to 20. And we're seeing it again today. We're seeing it in LA, close to my hometown. And we just saw it in Mexico, this little Mexican, this riot that happened down there against foreigners, another fake riot. And, you know, none of these things, one way you can always tell these fake riots is just ask some simple questions. Who would be out doing this day after day after day? What's the cause? Is it a cause that anyone would leave their job, leave their family, and just destroy a town day after day? And that's what's happening. And so Scott Horton's done an incredible job. I think his book is called Provoked. He did an incredible job on researching the history of Ukraine. I'd recommend it to people. And of course, you know, what he's saying about the first Gulf War is true also. And using that now as an intro, you know, listen to what the globalists are saying about, you know, this war between Ukraine and Russia and what to do with Russia. And that's what the Mark Root tape is
here we
for.
go. This was a few days ago. It's about 30 seconds. And he talks about, you know, the new possible conflict that he sees coming.
Parades in Beijing. There must be some real world reason why they do this. And of course, this is Taiwan. We all know this. Let's really be not naive about this. If Xi Jinping would attack Taiwan, he will first make sure that he makes a call to his very junior partner in all of this, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, residing in Moscow, and telling him, hey, I'm going to do this, and I need you to keep them busy in Europe by attacking NATO territory. That is most likely the way this will progress.
You know, I find that really curious because that's exactly what the globalists are doing, is keeping us busy in Europe and depleting our weapons stores. I mean, the projection is amazing, but what say you?
Yeah, no, it's as fictitious and, you know, bizarre as can be. And he's sitting there, and then he calls his friend Vladimir Putin and just making stuff up to create. They're really getting desperate to manufacture fear. And
Yes.
again, if you keep playing that tape, he goes on to say, and then Vladimir Putin says, okay, now that's his signal to attack Europe. He also goes on to say, that's why we're putting in place this 18th round of severe sanctions. We're going to bring Russia to their knees. And then he says, their economy is nothing. It's their economy is the size of Texas, and the EU economy combined is 10 times the size of it. So it's kind of like the same thing we saw some of these ex-generals do. They say Russia, is a dysfunctional military. They can't even beat themselves. And then a few minutes later, they go on to say, but we need to increase our defense spending. We all need to be incredibly vigilant because they're going to attack us. It's just bizarre beyond belief. It ties back into all this fake, fake events, fake protests. But the globalists will keep trying and trying, and that's what you're seeing right now. They're trying to validate not just this increase in defense spending, which will be a big money laundering operation in Europe, and he's talking about the 5% number, but it also gives them a reason to stay on a quasi war footing, and a reason to validate censorship and the crushing of populist political parties that continue to make gains and inroads in winning Europe back for the European people
Well,
instead of these elitists.
I saw in Germany that they're getting very close to try to ban the AfD. So that's coming. My German guys on our Eurobyte show said, well, I don't think they can ever do that, but I think they're going to do that.
The AfD. Yeah. So it's just truth and community. The truth and freedom to talk about, discuss, pressure test the truth is what we need to get back to everywhere across the world, because the enemy is right in front of us, and it is these global elites, and what they're saying does not hold water. You can just pressure test it with a few simple questions and see that they're just making things up. His little conversation there between the head of China and Russia is just ridiculous when you listen to it. But that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to sow fear.
I don't think Russia trusts China at all. I think they're worried about their land in Siberia, and I think that's the real conversation. Is like, yeah, we're buying your gas, but we want your land. That's going to happen eventually too.
Yeah. And so, again, another hyperlink. I just got word that the Pentagon announced they will resume shipment of some weapons to Ukraine. And one of my sources told me that this change is directly due to the updated intelligence from the ground at the dire situation for Ukrainian forces all along the Eastern Front, but especially in the center and the north, where there's multiple pockets that are bending and about to break, and there's not a lot of defensive depth. Again, this is coming from someone who's just on the front lines. There's not a lot of defensive depth, so these lines break. We could see forces at the Dnipro in a very short, a day or two afterwards.
Pete, this is going to happen, right? So what does providing more weapons do? Unless you deploy the entire U.S. Army, they can't stop this. So what does a few more Patriot missiles do except reduce our stockpile so that we can't defend ourselves? That's my point. I mean, this is survival for America. It's not survival for Ukraine. We're in a dire situation here with our ability to protect our homeland, and we're giving it all to them for a losing cause. That's my point.
Yeah, it's a great point. And on top of that, it's just it's it's hypocrisy. You know, we're continuing to try to mediate peace, but we're giving weapons that will destroy the forces and the equipment of one side, not both sides, of one side, as we're lecturing them on how they should be more flexible and accept the peace. And again, I just think it's, President Trump getting really bad advice from some of his senior advisors who just cannot wrap their heads around the complexity of this thing. But at a much more basic level, they can't wrap their heads around the history, which is all we should be hanging on to, and not just the past history we talk about back to the overthrow in 14, but what you're talking about, Zelensky's recent moves against the Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine. It's disgusting.
Yeah, I interviewed Robert Amsterdam yesterday, and I'm going to play that. Probably put it out tomorrow, but I don't unless we have time today. But I mean, the situation is dire for the church there, and it's really, really bad. So thanks for bringing that up. Let me just highlight real quick this article I put out yesterday. You can find it on CDM. Mr. President, you are the one who can stop the killing, not Putin or Zelensky. Trump can do this by stopping the weapons deliveries and telling Ukraine, make peace. We're pulling support, make peace. That will end the killing on both sides. Yeah, Ukraine will lose territory, but what's the option? Continue to depopulate the country by killing all the men, press ganging them off the streets. You know, I played a video in the beginning of the show of a woman whose son was press ganged into the van, and she has a heart attack and dies on the street. I mean, what are you doing to these people, for God's sake? I mean, stop the killing. It's not a war of that we should be involved in. It's not our war. It's a border war of an old war, and these are old hatreds, and it needs to end. Sorry on my rant. Go ahead, Pete.
It's not a rant, and it's, because things are happening in such a traumatic way over there. And as an example, estimates are that Ukraine lost 25,000 soldiers in June. So that's about half of what we lost in Vietnam, but 25,000
in 1 month.
And as we talked last week, about just under 1,000 square kilometers of terrain, which already in July, about half of that they've also lost another 500. So just since the last peace talks, if they had just, accepted some of the terms and said, okay, we'll talk. We will, these points that Russia has been outlining for 2 years now, we will look at these and we will show flexibility. They'd still have that terrain back. They'd still have those people back. So
and they're going to lose more.
Exactly. And, it's important to go back and just keep saying this over and over. If the EU and the US hadn't overthrown the Yanukovych government, they'd still have Crimea and they'd have all of eastern Ukraine. And, that's why they've lost it. And if they had just accepted deals in 22 and 23, they may not have Crimea, but they'd have the rest of eastern Ukraine, which specifically in Donbass, which is the Donetsk basin, they'd at least have all those natural resources that they've also lost. But it's gone now, and all those men are gone, and they're still being killed. I'll just give you an example, something else that's I just found out about on the ground. Russia has been employing a new tactic of attacking these mobilization centers all across Ukraine, to include in Western Ukraine.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
And they've been very effective in disrupting the flow of not just recruits, but these mobilization centers are used for the whole kind of value chain, not just in processing, but then out processing from whatever couple of weeks of basic training they get, and then which units will get the reinforcements, which is micromanaged from the top. Again, a huge point of contention in the Ukrainian military. But this is what effects-based warfare is. It's not the destruction of the recruitment centers. It's the effect of the destruction. And the effect is this, and I'll have some pictures for next episode, because he couldn't get them back to me. On the destroyed mobilization centers, 2 of them, people had spray painted, have put up signs, "Thank you, Russia, keep it up." In one of the areas just on the outskirts of Kyiv, they tried to move the mobilization center to the basement of a hospital. It's a small hospital. And while they were doing it, the people attacked the movers. They stopped them from moving the equipment into the basement. They said, "You can't do this." So you're seeing just physically the will of the people is against this war. And you and I, because it's never pointed out to people, everyone should ask themselves, why can't we see any of this?
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
No press.
Killing 25,000 guys in a month, and you don't have a drop on the TV.
Because there's no press coverage, and there's not even in Kyiv, which is not a war zone. It's as we've talked about before, a beautiful city that would be easy for any reporter, especially a war correspondent, to live in. And there's none of that because they're hiding it from us. Yeah. Same thing I mentioned on the battlefield. Pavlovsk is on both sides almost surrounded. I also mentioned defense in depth to the west of Pavlovsk, which is toward the Dnipro. There's barely anything, but Russia has very methodically begun cutting off all logistical avenues of support for Pavlovsk, either by taking out bridges and or mining the go-around areas from the bridges. And so what you got is a siege mentality. I think, it's my opinion, my assessment is this is another example. Russia is taking this approach to this war where they're not in a hurry because they're not in a hurry to die. They don't want to give up mass casualties to inflict mass casualties when they can, in a much slower and deliberate way, inflict mass casualties without taking them themselves. And that's what's going on. What we had about 4 or 5 shows ago, we talked a little bit about tactics. I just want to, again, because I think it's so important. You're seeing in this battle, this Pavlovsk battle, you're seeing the same thing, and also north toward the Sumy region, you're seeing this dichotomy between the disconnected chain of command that Ukraine has. It's micromanaged from Kyiv and Wiesbaden, and how Russia has shifted to this guys on the ground flexibility where you have a purpose and then you're allowed to accomplish that purpose based on what's going on around you. And that's why we continue to see the way Russia is taking all this terrain is on ATVs, motorcycles, and shoe leather express. It's light infantry, small unit movements. And the reason it's so important to point it out is you don't know when the time is right to take advantage of an abandoned section of front lines or a section of front lines that's just been destroyed by some very accurate and effective indirect fire. You can't plan that. You have to do it on the fly. And by allowing your frontline forces to make decisions about when to move, and think about it, because you're using squads, you're not telling a brigade to do a frontal assault and losing hundreds of men in the process. You're experimenting, and you can experiment with groups of 2, 3, 5, and 10 much more effectively than you can a brigade. So we're seeing this huge delta between success on the Russian side and lack of success and failure on the Ukrainian side. And the reason is the command and control models, the disconnected micromanaging hierarchy on the Ukraine side versus the sense of shared purpose and the ability to operate independently and adaptively by frontline forces.
Wow. And the other thing is that the leadership here is, if you look at some of the erotic videos that Zelensky's done, marching around naked with guys, and you look at Marina Abramovic, I think is her name. She was literally spirit cooking, kind of satanic worshiper. You've got the destruction of Christianity, which we'll talk about. I think I'm going to play that video from Bob Amsterdam after you that I did yesterday. But I mean, we're supporting people who don't for the term "don't hold our values" is ridiculous. It's much more than that. I mean, this is demonic. I mean, what's going on over there, and we're funding it. Why?
Yeah. Again,
what else, Pete? We got to go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just agreeing with you. It's a great point, and that's why it's important to call it out and to talk about it on shows like this. So
let me
keep it up.
Do you want to play any of these other videos? I've got the guy in captivity, I've got the drone video, and then the other press gang video.
Yeah, you can maybe just show the guy in captivity, because it's another good
Here we go.
example of
того, как прошли военную подготовку, нас отправили на позицию. Спустя 3 дня приехал командир, я же говорю, Рафик позывной, показал нам точку, на которой будет находиться наш спостережный пункт. Я и еще со мной 2 побратима. Пробыли мы полных 3,5 месяца. Медицины у нас никакой, это наши, только аптечки те, которые мы взяли. С продуктами питания они раз в неделю, как и вода, приходили. Так что Баба Ягой дроном сбрасывалось. Условия, я думаю, хороший хозяин к животным лучше относится. Потом мы начали понимать, что нас, как в народе говорится, просто кинули. Мы были брошены на произвол. Были времена, когда у нас была бутылочка воды на 3. Есть мы ничего не ели. Бывало такое, мы с побратимами мочу колотили, с кофе пили. А так, если дождь шел, то спасал дождь нас. Морально, эмоционально и психологически мы все были подавлены. Такая уже точка кипения. И в этой ситуации ты ничего не можешь сделать. Когда мы по рациям передавали приветы родным, старались, что все хорошо, то нам говорили, не дозвонились. Но то, что они делают людей 500-ми, выставляют без вести пропавшими. Это в голове не укладывается.
So pretty horrific treatment these guys are getting on the front.
Yeah, and I think that's again why it's important for the West, people of the West, to see that first, just the human toll, the sad human toll, the pain, and the just psychological damage done to these soldiers who are living in the most horrific and austere situation imaginable, starving, freezing, no water, and then abandoned. And once an incident, twice a coincidence, three times a pattern. We see this over and over and over. All these guys are abandoned, and the abandoned is really just another word for what we've been talking about. Disconnected hierarchies, among all their other negative aspects, one is they're disconnected. So they don't give a shit about the people they're supposed to be taking care of. That's what leaders do in combat. They take care of their people with good tactics, good logistics, and whatever those guys need to accomplish their purpose. But that's not happening. And it's part of it is institutional. It's this broken command and control model. So for anyone, all the way up to President Trump, I wish he could see that video. This is what our weapons are going to do. They're just prolonging the agony of guys like that. We show them regularly because no one else does. And it's incredibly sad, and everyone should feel for that guy on both sides, because there's thousands of others just like him suffering in the same way.
Hundreds of thousands. Yeah. It's really, I think it's a depopulation, maybe even a human sacrifice ritual for somebody. There's just no other explanation. They must be depopulating Ukraine for something else. And that's why they continue to push this, in my humble opinion. Pete, is there anything else you want to get out? Just awesome info as usual.
Yeah, thanks. Enjoyed it. And no, I think that was a good way to end it.
All right, we'll see Pete next Tuesday on Ukraine SitRep, and we'll be back on the skiff after this. Thank you. And we got some more information on Ukraine coming.